Hey there, happy Friday. Welcome to my studio here in New York City. I'm Daniel Norton, and in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about what we can charge for. So I've gotten this question a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different times, so I just want to talk a little bit about how we might put together an estimate when we're dealing with clients. So this is going to be super vague because, of course, I don't know exactly what you're doing or who your clients are. If though we want to make some comments below of like, let's say a typical job that you're thinking about, maybe we can make a few of these where I kind of put together something. But one thing we want to think about when we're figuring out what we can charge for or what we do charge for is what seems reasonable. Now might be out there, and I know this is controversial, but what seems reasonable to the client? That is to say that it would be weird for most clients for you to, let's say, charge for a camera. You know, have a line item that was like camera, lights, right? They assume you're a photographer, you're gonna have a camera. Now, if you're doing a commercial project where there's something special needed or you need additional cameras or a special kind of camera that they've requested, special lens, that's different, right? I'm talking about just a camera in general, right? It would be, in some cases, it might be weird to charge for a studio, especially if you are a portrait photographer that has a studio that they come to and that's kind of part of the job, right? You don't wanna put like studio expense, camera, hourly. That's not how you do it. That's going to be basically a package, right? That package is you the photographer, what you come with. Now, if you are an editorial photographer that shoots for magazines, that kind of stuff, do more news stuff, you're not typically something that's working out of a studio, and then somebody asks for studio lit portraits, whether you own the studio or not, it might be okay to charge for that, right? It really just depends. Typically, people have gone through a lot of different ways of handling digital files at this point. I found that the best way to do it is to not worry too much about the number of frames. Like I've seen people do this, 100 pictures, 30 pictures, 50 pictures, because that also sets you up for a situation where like you get somebody in front of your lens and shoot, let's say you said 100 pictures and you shot like 20 of them and you've got it. Now you have to shoot 80 more pictures or else they're not gonna get what they paid for. So I generally like to work by either day rates if it's a commercial project, or if you're making portraits, I usually charge by like a block of time. Like a session is this long. And even then, I will give a variety. Like I might say, like a typical headshot session for me, if you were to approach me, hey Daniel, I'd like to do a headshot. I say, okay, well, a typical session is 2 to 3 hours long and it costs this much, right? And then they might say, well, we want to go out to the park. I'm like, that's fine. The session starts when you show up, right? Or if we're only going to shoot at the park and you're going to be ready when we get there, we could start at the park, right? But if we're going to start here and you're going to have to prep, we're starting at the studio. Your session starts here. Travel time is part of the 2 to 3 hours. So just keep that in mind. It used to be, I would think about a number of outfits, but I don't feel like that really makes a lot of sense because what I found is I tell people to bring as many as you like, but generally speaking, after about 2 or 3 outfits, most people got enough shots, they're happy. I very rarely have run into somebody who wanted to shoot like 10 outfits, unless they were trying to snake some kind of catalog thing under the deal without, trying to be slick about it, saying it was a modeling shoot, but I'm on to you. Anyways, if you're doing more of a commercial type project though, where it's kind of like you're being hired in, there was an advertising agency, they've got, a layout or whatever, then you're gonna have to figure out what's involved and sit down and actually think about what is involved in the situation. Is there a location? Is there food? Is there crew? Is there studio rentals? Is there set builders? All these things. And basically one version of this question I get a lot is, which of those things can you mark up? Well, that also depends on your client. Generally, I would say all of it if it goes through you. That is that if you are, let's say, hiring a makeup artist from a makeup artist agency and they are charging $1,500 a day plus 20% agency fee, and you put exactly that on your invoice, then you are taking the responsibility of paying that bill and sitting on it if it's late and all this other stuff. So you want to mark that up, right? If the client is paying them directly, then you would just put paid by client and then you would list the cost, right? So anything, just the basic general rule here is anything that you have to add to the equation that's not part of like your general vibe of who you are. So like in my case, if you came here for a headshot, I have a studio. If we're shooting in the studio, you're paying for me, the studio, digital pictures, whatever, all that stuff delivered digitally, which I would talk about ahead of time. If they wanted, let's say, it on a hard drive, I would provide a hard drive, or they could bring their own. And if they want me to provide a hard drive, which commercial clients usually do, they don't want to deal with that, then I would mark that up, right? Because anything that I'm putting out cash for, I would mark up. So typically speaking, you don't tell them that you're marking it up so much, but clients understand that. So if you say, hard drive, and you can get one from Adorama for $128. You might say hard drive, $170, right? You don't put tax, you don't put any of that, you just say $170. It's just how you do it. This way, and then, if you do a lot of this stuff, and I'm not going to get into all this tax stuff because it really depends on where you are, you might be able to buy stuff at wholesale and then charge the sales tax and come back and pay it. Typically speaking, though, if you are buying a consumable, and again, I'm not a lawyer nor an accountant, so don't, if you get audited, don't go by me. Typically, if you're buying something and you're paying the sales tax on it, and then you're just handing it off to the client, you would just basically be responsible tax-wise for the difference, right? You wouldn't have to pay the sales tax on the $170, whereas you would charge them the sales tax on the $170 if you bought it wholesale. So it's a different kind of thing. Again, go to an accountant for that because it's going to matter where you are. But the point being is that it costs you $128 plus tax. You charge them $170. So let's say you walk away making $30 from the hard drive. That's your time to go get it. That's what you're charging for, right? All this stuff isn't free. You had to go figure out what hard drive they need. You had to go pick it up from the store, that kind of stuff. So you're basically charging them for that. It's a way to do that. Another way to do it is to give them exact costs and then charge a production day, which is what I would do if you had clients that, for instance, wanted receipts and they were only going to pay that receipt amount. If you do have those clients, you need to make sure that in your contract you have that they need to pay within a certain amount of time, or they will be charged a percentage for late. That's because if you put it on your credit card and then they take 90 days to pay and it's been sitting on your credit card and you just get the exact amount back, you just paid money, right? So what you want to do is they've got to pay within a certain amount of time, or they've got to add a fee, or you don't worry about that. And you should always have a certain amount of time they have to pay, but for expenses, or you get charged production days. That's the other way to do it. You charge the exact amount, and then you say, okay, well, it's a half a day production. I have to go down the street to pick up flowers from the flower store. I have to go buy a hard drive. I have to get my roll of background paper. I'm going to have to do this. So I'm going to charge you half a day rate for that. And in addition to that, I will give you the receipts, which you will pay exactly. And those receipts are due within 15 days of the shoot, because if not, then you're going to get a fee, because obviously I got to pay a fee on my credit card percentage. So that's how you handle that stuff. So the long and short of this is, what can you mark up on your thing? Anything that goes through your hands should be marked up or handled in a way that you don't end up taking in a cost in the end. You don't want to buy a hard drive for $128 plus tax for the client, charge them exactly that, and then have them take 60 days to pay you, and now you're paid 2% on your credit card, or just didn't collect the money that money would have been in your savings account or whatever, or CD's getting money. So always take that into account. Anything that passes through you can mark up and charge. Anything that's extra that the client is going to pay directly, typically you would not mark up. And that's that. So let me know again specifically if you want me to kind of do some roughs on some, like if you give me a basic job, and I'll kind of tell you what I would and wouldn't. If that's interesting to people, put that in the comments below. If you haven't already, go ahead, subscribe, ring the bell so you get the notifications, and I'll see you next time.